Over the last 5 years, we've had a variety of economic, social, health, et cetera, disruptions to our day-to-day living and our business lives. Add to that our real-life personal challenges, and we can have seasons in our life that push our limits. Now, obviously, these impact all areas of our lives. As I said, our business lives are no exception. So the question is, how do we stay resilient and healthy for ourselves, our teams, and our communities? While researching potential guests, I ran across Maureen O'Brien, speaker, author, cancer survivor, and CEO of the Global Wisdom and Leadership Forum. I like what she had to say about resilience, team dynamics, and leadership development. She also brings an understanding of our contractor and distribution worlds, having worked with both in the past. Before we get much further, let's hear how Maureen would answer the question, who is Maureen O'Brien?
Maureen O'Brien is the CEO of the Global Wisdom and Leadership Forum. I am the former owner and founder of O'Brien and Son Construction. I am a really, really well-practiced pivoter. I am the sales sage. I am an MOF. I am known as Mo to the people that I love. And interestingly, you can tell by that I'm a strategic planner. It took me a long time to find the right guy to marry so that my nickname and my initials would be the same. Just think on that for a minute. And I am Grand Mo to 9 little humans.
Well, welcome to Keeping the Lights On. I'm your host, Todd Reed, and on this podcast, I connect with the owners and pros who design, build, and maintain our electrical, communications, and industrial worlds to explore the best ways forward. Let's get into the show. We like to start out each episode with the meals that bring us together to share ideas over that. So, Maureen, if I or one of the listeners were to visit you in your hometown, where might you take us, and why would you choose this place?
First of all, look at me. I love food. Let's start there. I would tell you that I would not take you to a restaurant. I would take you out on our boat on the Fox River,
Yes.
and
Okay.
it would not be, I mean, we'd probably have a picnic, but it would be less about the meal and more about the connection. That's really a wonderful reset place. Also, you can't get away. So I have your full attention.
Okay, this sounds scary. I've never had this before.
I don't know what to tell you, but it kind of is. You should ask my 4 kids about that, because they would tell you the same. Once they were on the boat, they were on the boat until we said we were getting off the boat. So, yeah.
Nice. Okay. What kind of boat is it? Pontoon, ski boat?
It's a
What do
ski
you
boat.
got?
It's a 22-foot inboard Malibu. My husband is a phenomenal skier, and my sons and daughter are really good skiers. So we've had hours and hours and hours of joy on that boat.
Is there during the picnic or maybe after boating, is there some food item that kind of is a family favorite?
I would say now wine.
It's a food group.
That is a food group for us. I think probably the favorite food of the O'Brien family is pizza, and Chicago pizza is, you can't beat it. So
that's good stuff.
But honestly, in the boat, it is not so much about that. It truly is about the connection.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds great. I love the water. So I'll be, as soon as I hang up here, we normally don't do this, but we're recording this on Friday before Labor Day. So I am for sure driving up Fox River. Get on that
It's a
boat.
deal. Bring your fishing pole. Maybe you'll catch dinner. Who knows?
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Cool. All right. Well, so we're on the boat, we're talking. And one of the things I think we'd probably definitely talk about based on your experience and your writing and your speaking is about leadership and teams and kind of where we are in the state of things. So I guess my first question for you, from your experience working with leaders and teams, what are some of the biggest challenges that contractors and business leaders are facing right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the answer is uncertainty. There are very few absolutes. I think that project costs are scary. There are generational differences. We have now almost 5 generations in the workforce now. I think aligning long-term goals with short-term financial difficulties. There are some skill gaps. There is a shortage in some fields. And for labor. So it's a lot. It's a lot for leaders to try to work through right now. This is honestly one of the toughest times that I can remember in my entire career.
Oh, wow. Well, let's talk about the leader specifically. Are there any misconceptions that leaders have about what's really holding their teams back from performing their best?
Yeah, I'll tell you the biggest misconception is that the leader isn't the problem. That's usually the biggest problem. And it is because, we're so busy that we often don't spend enough time in self-reflection and taking a self-awareness in understanding what our reality is versus what our perception is. And so I think that what I think leaders can do to help with that are three things, 3 C's. One is clarity. Like, why am I doing this? Am I passionate about this? Does this matter? Does my team matter? Connection. Have I asked my team why things aren't working so well? Like, who are my trusted advisors? Who is my, air quote, board of directors that I could talk to that'll tell me how I really show up in life? And then finally, conviction. If you determine that you need to make a pivot with your team, and frankly, please don't have it be whatever is the flavor of the week. Directionally, you're going one way, your team's on board, and now you're going this way, and your team doesn't know what happened. But if you're thoughtful about that process and you know that you need to make a pivot, then show some conviction around that. And you can say to your team, I might not have all the answers, but what I do know is that we'll get through this together. And here's where we're going to go.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that as they come to you, the leaders come to you and say, hey, I've got some issues with my people. What are some of the most common people problems that leaders bring to you? And are there reoccurring themes that you see across different organizations?
Yes. And if you had to guess, what do you think it would be?
Kids nowadays don't have work ethic. That's one, I think.
You would hear that. The issue almost 100% of the time is communication. And how it is that we communicate with each other. Most specifically, how a leader communicates to their team. We're not so much about that military structure of command and control. You really are coaching now. And for some people, that's really tough. That's really, really hard. It's tougher than just saying my way or the highway, right? But that doesn't work anymore. And so also within communication, making sure that what your expectations are aligned with what people understand you're expecting them to do, which can also be a disconnect. I told you that I love the book Made to Stick. One of the illustrations that they do in there is a leader oftentimes will have more knowledge and more context about what's happening in the company than the people who work for that leader. And so it's kind of like this, like if you had the song Row, Row, Row Your Boat in your head, but you tried to tap that out to me without singing.
Oh, yeah.
You'd be like, what? But that's what it's like. Like, I don't have this song in my head, so I don't know what you want me to sing now. I love that illustration because it's so simplistic, but it's so much of what's happening today for our leaders. And again, I think it starts with self-awareness. Like, how do you rate yourself as a leader? And honestly, it's important to know how you rate yourself. It's also important to know how others would describe you or rate you.
How do issues like preconceived notions, those communication breakdowns, show up in contractor teams or leadership groups?
Well, I think first of all, there's not, we talked about clarity, connection, and conviction. Those things don't happen when there's not clear communication about what needs to happen next. And I do think, when you think about diversity of thought, you and I may look somewhat similar. I mean, we have obvious differences, but but we're very diverse because we don't share the same brain. We don't think the same way. We're not the same age. We don't come from the same place. We haven't had the same life experience. And sometimes what we tend to do is group people in those boxes. And that doesn't work. Like, the best thing that you can do is get to know your people. Get to know them, listen to understand. Because most people want to contribute to making a difference. They want to do work that matters. But oftentimes we decide, well, they really don't want to because, they're just, that's not how they are. They have it reminds me of when my parents, I remember listening to my parents, and my parents would say, "You kids today," did you ever hear that? Like, we do that as leaders. We broad brush the entire group that whoever they are, that's how they are. That's how they think. That's what they don't do. And that can crush a team.
What role they're always doing surveys of generational groups, or insert any of the other, we're going to talk on some, an assessment type of platform, Myers-Briggs, and insert so there must be some advantage of kind of having some of those categories though. Where do you see the play between kind of understanding what Gen Xer and a Gen Z are kind of how they view the world?
Well,
versus individuality.
Yeah. You brought up Myers-Briggs. I love that. I love all of those assessments. I will tell you from a corporate standpoint, oftentimes assessments are not really structured to get the information that is really the root cause of what it is we're trying to do. And companies are looking at that now, which they should. Okay. But I will tell you, an assessment that we use that I love a lot is called the Herman Brain Dominance Instrument. It's really simple, but it helps me identify how it is that you think and how it is that you solve problems. And it doesn't matter your age, your race, your gender. It's about your brain. It's not your personality. It's about how you think. And so I think for organizations and leaders to find tools and resources that they might be able to utilize to really listen to understand their people and understand how they can help each one of their employees live into their fullest potential. Because that's the job of a leader.
Yeah. So how are you seeing the current business climate, economic uncertainty, pricing, changing workforce expectations, et cetera, impacting the way leaders are approaching their roles?
Well, my hope, I have a hope, and then I have what I see. My hope is that leaders will take a pause and really start with self. For me, it is self, us, and the world. Those are the steps. And until you really understand how it is that you're showing up in life, perhaps what your conscious or unconscious biases are, the reality is then once you know, you can't unknow. Now you have a choice in terms of making a difference with the people with whom you're working. And so I think the smartest leaders are taking a pause, are understanding that empathy is the number one skill set for an effective leader. When I started my career, that wasn't on the list, right? It was very different. And so if you're still leading from the list that my age group started with, you're going to be in trouble. It doesn't work. And there's a lot of that. I'm sure you could cite examples also. There's a lot of that happening, but I think to really focus on empathy and to understand emotional intelligence and how important that is in today's workplace, I think that in today's climate, for leaders to be effective, that's the place it has to start.
Okay. So one of the things that I saw come up a bunch when I was researching before we talked, and then in our pre-call, and we've touched on it a little bit here, but you talk a lot about resilience. We'll probably touch on some of the ways to get better resilience, but right now I just want to talk about it as, it could be a key issue for leaders today. There's a lot of challenges, and you said in your view that seems like one of the most challenging times for leaders right now. So can you share some examples of situations where leaders or teams have struggled to adapt or bounce back when something hits the fan, so to
Yeah,
speak?
I'll give you an example that you'll know. I think you'll know. You're young, so maybe you won't know. But think about Blockbuster. Blockbuster used to be booming, right? Like I can remember Friday nights going to that store, waiting in line to get my videos that we were going to watch for the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But the leaders at Blockbuster became arrogant. And they believed that there's only one way to tie your shoes, and it's the way they were tying their shoes. And there was no space for innovation. There was no place to stay contemporary with what was happening. And so, tragically, that was a fatal mistake. And they're not here. So I think that arrogance plays a part. Feeling like there's nothing left for you to learn. A resilient leader is always learning, always trying to develop, always trying to get better. Ray Kroc, who was the founder of McDonald's, said, as long as you're green, you're growing. When you're ripe, you start to rot. I believe that to be true. I think that the requirement of resilient leadership is learning, it's paying attention to data, and it's getting up one more time.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I know a little bit about as a stage 4 non-Hodgkin's cancer survivor. That was not easy. My road was not easy, but getting up one more time was a promise that I made to myself. And by the grace of God, I'm still here.
So what are some practical steps leaders can do to start to build resilience, in themselves? You mentioned like looking at data, but what are some other things they can do?
Again, take a breath, pause. No knee-jerk reaction. Listen to understand. Focus on the 3 C's: clarity, connection, conviction. And take one small step to keep moving forward. We have a tendency to freeze. I have done it in my own life where we, the waters get a little turbulent and we hold on to the wheel harder. That doesn't help.
Mm-hmm.
I would say making room for innovation and inviting your team to make mistakes because you will learn from those things. Creating an environment where it's okay to take a risk. Now you have to measure the risk, of course, but I think we become risk averse when things are uncertain, and that doesn't help. One of the companies that I love to follow is Lego. In 2003, Lego was dying. They had lost 30% of the market. They were like $8 million in debt. So they took a pause. And they looked at their model and they got rid of the things that didn't matter, that weren't in alignment with the conviction of and the clarity of what their company was supposed to be. They also hired outside the family. That was helpful. And now, they are way ahead of where the toy manufacturing industry is. They're having phenomenal results. And do you know that they also opened an innovation line where anybody that's 13 years old or older can give them an idea?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been on that website.
It is very cool, right? That shows that you are not so arrogant that there's not room for you to still learn. that's where you want to live. I would never be so arrogant as to say, I know what it's like to work at Graybar. I don't. But I can listen to understand and try to help where I can, but I would not have the arrogance of a knowingness that I don't have. That just is silly.
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes leaders think they have to be the smartest people in the room. The smartest leaders surround themselves with the smartest people in the room.
We talked about preconceived notions earlier. So now you've mentioned pausing, which I think is huge. How do you become aware that you're in that loop of preconceived notions and begin to move beyond them?
Yeah. So again, I think, taking a pause. And if you notice repetitive issue, you're probably in the loop, right? Like if you are having the same issues over and over and over, that would be a place of pause to say, how am I contributing to this? What is it that I am doing that is contributing to an outcome that I don't want?
Mm-hmm.
But it's really and truly, it's about self-awareness. It's about paying attention to your own behavior and your own thinking and your own openness to a different way of tying your shoes.
Yeah. So how can leaders start to help their teams connect their daily work to a larger sense of purpose or impact, especially in industries like construction, contracting, distribution, that sort of thing?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for asking that question. I think that there's so many thoughts in my head right now. Something that happens to all of us is I think that we can get caught in the minutia. And I think we can get frustrated by the mundane. And what I want to share with you are two things. First of all, when I had cancer and I was going through my treatment, which meant that I would check into the hospital for a week at a time, tied to a 24-hour chemo drip. And I did that 6 times. I was longing for the mundane. I was longing that I could walk my dog. I couldn't. I was walking with a walker, or I was in a wheelchair. I was longing that I could start my own car. I couldn't. And so I think that that's one thing that we pay attention to when we get frustrated around the minutia or the mundane. Again, I think the pause in gratitude, that we have the ability to be there. That's one. A bigger piece for me is seeing the bigger picture. So for example, in the electrical business, if you're working in a hospital, as you're working, do you ever imagine in your mind's eye that 7-year-old boy that's in that hospital bed getting chemotherapy? And because of you, he might be able to have a little break and play one of his games on his, iPad later because he was able to charge it while he was having chemo. Like, I think we're short-sighted when we need to be long-sighted. Yeah. And realize that I started out by saying people in general want to contribute to making a difference. And you are contributing to making a difference in that little boy's life, in my life, when I was tied to a chemo machine. What happens if that went down? Or there was a blackout? Like big impact. And so those are the kinds of things that I would encourage leaders to be encouraging their teams, inspiring their teams, helping their teams understand that it's bigger what they're doing than this specific moment. Right. It's the long game, not the short game.
Yeah. Moves beyond the receptacle that you've put 150 in that day.
Yeah.
And your eyes starting to roll. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's good. But then again, it requires the leader to take a pause and think about, okay, why are we doing this? Let me share that. Yeah. All right. So, Maureen, I like to close out all of our conversations by refocusing on the why of what we do. So, what motivates you to do this day in and day out? What keeps you excited and passionate about what you do?
I love people. I really do. I love people. And I would say that I love seeing a light bulb go on for a leader. I love seeing a leader say, I didn't know that about myself. I didn't know that that's how people saw me or that's how I show up. And now that I know, I'm going to do something about it. And frankly, the honest answer is, Todd, I don't know how much time I have left. But the reality is neither do you. A little more in my face because what I've been through.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to live and I want to contribute. And so while I'm here, I'm going to do that. When it's all said and done, I want to have left everything on the field. And I want to have made a difference. That's why I get out of bed in the morning.
So thank you so much for being here, taking the time out before Labor Day to be with me. And it's been great having you.
You too. We'll see you this weekend, yeah? In the boat.
Oh, yeah. Let me go pack up my
bags. Please do, because you can't get out of the boat till it's over.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Nice.
Have a great weekend.
Well, that was my conversation with Maureen O'Brien, CEO of the Global Wisdom and Leadership Forum. You can connect with Maureen and what she is working on by heading to the links in the show notes. You'll also find links to her books and other resources that can help you today. Now, I would love to hear how you're working through challenges right now with resilience, or maybe something you're struggling with that you haven't quite figured out how to overcome. You can email them to me at podcast@graybar.com or post on our Spotify and YouTube comment sections. If you enjoyed this episode, you can help us grow this show by subscribing and leaving a 5-star rating in your favorite podcast player and YouTube. And be sure to share it with your friends. Thanks for listening to this episode of Keeping the Lights On. We'll see you next time. All right. What advice would you give to 18-year-old Maureen?
I would tell her to relax. I would tell her, don't worry so much about what other people think of you, because what matters is what you think of you. I would tell her that not to be afraid of the pivots, and there will be many of them, and that you'll be okay. And I would also tell her to buy Apple stock.